It takes a lot of load off these guys. The BYU is so willing to come up and like, there's this feeding that BYU, their own catering services can do that, they're willing to do that.
To rent?
FEMA will let us rent, but not buy. So that's something to take into consideration.
Yeah.
Okay, Commissioner Ainge, can you hear us?
Not as good as I usually can, but yes.
We're doing a mic check to see if those that are online can hear us. I see one person on here. Brigham, can you see us? Put your thumbs up, maybe. Doesn't look like anybody can hear us right now. Yeah. If he can't hear us, he wouldn't know we're checking. Okay, Commissioner Ainge, can you hear us?
Yes, perfect.
All right, fantastic. And I assume that the others that are online can hear us as well. Yes, I see Brigham nodding his head. Okay. Welcome this afternoon to our Board of County Commissioners meeting. And as we always start, we'll start with a prayer, reading, thought, and the Pledge of Allegiance. And we have a special guest here that's going to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. So that one's already taken. Presley Black, granddaughter to Alice, is going to lead us in that. So we're looking to the audience if anybody would like to give us a prayer, reading, or thought. Any volunteers? Oh, please, come on up. Thank you, Sheriff.
Our Father in heaven, we're grateful for this opportunity to come together as citizens of Utah County, and we're grateful for the opportunity to live in such a wonderful place, and we pray that we can have thy influence here in our meeting, that we can do things to make it a better place and to move forward as a county and do the things that would make our lives easier and better. And we pray for thy hand in our government at all levels, that our country can be safe and continue to be the amazing country that it is. We pray for our troops and for all those that serve, and these things we say and give thanks for in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you for participating with us and driving over here. Probably not driving yet, right? Okay. Thank you for not driving over here then. Okay, we'll look at our agenda and build our agenda. Our agenda has a number of items on it. Those that we don't pull off of our regular agenda will be considered consented to by all three commissioners. Again, if one commissioner decides to have more discussion on it, we can pull it off for discussion purposes and then take action as needed. So let's start with items number 1 through 10. I know that number 4 and 5 we need to hold to take action. And I think it might be appropriate to hold number 6 as well.
I think 4 and 5, the finding is contained within that agenda language, so if you want to approve those on consent, you could.
Okay. All right, I'm fine with doing that then, if the others are fine with that. We'll just leave those off. That's consented to, 4 and 5. It's consented to. Number 6 then, if we can hold that one just for some discussion. Any others through 10?
I'd like to hold 7 and 8.
7 and 8, okay. Commissioner Sakovic, you're starting to whittle down, so you only have a few left. On at least 1 through 10.
No, I'm good with that.
Okay, let's look at items then. Let's go 11 through 20. We could hold item number 15 and number 16, number 18. Those are the ones I have.
I'll hold 14 as well.
14. Okay. Any others, Commissioner, through 20?
None from me.
I should have went to just all the way to 21. I don't know why. It's just because even number stuff.
No, I'm happy to, I'm good for that, the consent.
Okay.
I don't have any.
Let's look at 21 then through 21 through 24. We've got, and then those are the, so 20, 22, we'll need to take some action on. And number 24, we'll hold for discussion.
And I'd like to hold 23.
23 as well. All right, any others?
No.
Okay. So all of the ones that we did not pull off, I'll just name the ones that we did pull off. We pulled off item number 6, number 7, number 8, number 14, number 15, 16, 18, 22, 23, and 24 are the ones that we pulled off. All others are considered consented to with unanimous consent by all 3 commissioners.
I make a motion, we consent those items that you have just named off.
I don't, we're good. We don't have to do a motion. We'll just consent that they're agreed to.
Yeah.
All right. Any discussion on those that we have consented to? Just general comments? Okay, seeing none. We'll move then to item number 6. It's the approve and authorize an agreement with a secure, with IT Secure One. And Robert, we've had, some discussion on this. The only concerns I have is that this, back in 2018, was not agreed to in a contract basis. And so I just wanted to understand a little bit more why we're agreeing to continue an agreement and to not go through with a contract. And that's, I just wanted to make sure we had that discussion.
Actually, Robert Baxter, purchasing manager. The purpose of this is actually just kind of a formality from my perspective. Our purchasing rules require a contract for this dollar amount on a purchase. It actually should have had a contract when it was originally done in 2018. We're just now renewing this software, and it was just an oversight on our part that we didn't get the contract at that time. It's not really a requirement from that company. In fact, in the software industry, they don't generally deal in contracts. We're sort of forcing them to comply with our rules so that we'll be complying with our own rules. So we're just, now that we're renewing it, we just want to be in compliance with the rules, so we're doing an agreement for that purpose, really only.
Okay. And Patrick, if you wanted to.
I didn't have anything to say. I was just here
Okay.
to answer any questions you might have. Did you have another question?
And I know what this is for security purposes and so forth. So I would assume that we're okay going forward with it. And I would probably assume that next time it comes up, we go through a contract. I don't know what that length is. Do we just keep continuing on this agreement, or at some point in time
It's a
do we?
3-year agreement, and every time we would ask them present us with another contract because it's over $10,000.
Because we're at the 3-year mark right now. And so, in essence, we probably could have asked them for a contract this time.
Yeah, we could have avoided the whole thing if we would have gone with a single year agreement. A single year was $6,500, but there was such a cost savings to extend it to a 3-year. It's like $11,500 total cost for 3 years, as opposed to $6,500 every year. we could have taken that first one and then not needed a contract at all, but we felt like the cost savings justified the extra hoop.
Okay, that makes sense to me. Any other comments or questions? Motion then would be in order.
And make a motion, we approve item number 6 to approve and authorize agreement with IT Secure One.
Second?
Get a motion and a second to approve and authorize the agreement as stated in number 6. All in favor say aye.
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 That passes 3-0. Number 7 is to authorize a change in the staffing plan to the assessor's office to add 1 full-time career service senior support specialist. And they give all the position of the codes and everything in there. This one, and I don't know who's going to speak to it. I asked the question originally, why is this coming up if it's already in the staffing plan and budgeted for from last year? But there is a deviation from it. This one actually adds to the dollar amount significantly enough that it needs to come on to the to the commission agenda. It's about a $20,000 ad instead of what was budgeted for last year. So, is Chris here? Ralph, did you want to just kind of speak to it then?
Well, I know Chris is on the line.
Oh, there he is. Okay.
Yeah. So
I just came on, sorry.
I'll just do, I also held this, so I guess the way I'm looking at it is, I respect the department heads need to staff according to the needs as you see fit and you manage your department. That being said, I do expect the department heads to operate within the budget that was approved, the overall budget. And so I saw in the email there was some ways in which this increase could be offset so that the assessor's office still would live within its existing budget. But it wasn't clear that was going to be 100% offset or there was a commitment to do so. So for me, that's where I'd be fine approving this if if we got the assessor's department to clearly state that there will not need to be additional budget transfers to cover this increased cost.
This is Chris, and that's correct. We can cover it under our existing budget.
Okay, that was my only question. Thanks.
Okay. Any other discussion? All right, a motion then.
I move that we approve item number 7.
I can second the motion.
Get a motion and a second to authorize the change as stated in number 7 on our agenda. All in favor say aye.
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 That passes 3-0. Number 8 is to approve and authorize the commission chair to sign an agreement with the Qualtrics for their employee enhancement platform, engagement platform. Who held this one? I don't remember. Sorry.
So I have this one as well, and it's really just because I know that I've worked with HR over the past week to work on this contract, and I know they were able to get a reduction, saving $5,000, which is great. The only problem is I don't think that the new contract with that new value is what's uploaded, and so I want to make sure we're not approving the higher value.
So this is Ralph Barnes with HR. We did get the upgraded agreement actually just this morning, and I thought we had it uploaded. I know for sure we do have the right amount on the contract that will be signed. So I'll just make sure you get the right one into your hands, for the commission chair to sign.
Do we know what that number is so we can just put it in the motion?
$12,000.32.
Okay, thanks. If there's no other questions, I agree with that, Bill. We can just put it in the motion.
Okay.
Okay, I move that we approve agenda item number 8, noting the contract value of $12,000.32.
I can second the motion.
We got a motion and a second to approve and authorize the signing of the agreement with Qualtrics for $12,032. All in favor, say aye.
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 That passes 3-0. Number 14, to approve and authorize the signing of a resolution for an execution of an interlocal cooperative agreement.
I held this one as well. Similar question. I think that the notes referenced a $40,000 value, but I believe the actual contract is just for $4,000. Just before voting, I wanted to get confirmation.
This is Ben Vanoy. You're right. The amount is 4,100. I apologize for any confusion.
Okay, if that's what's clearly, and that is what's in the contract, it was just in some notes in the system, so I would make a motion unless any other commissioners have questions.
I have
don't.
none.
Okay, a
Okay,
motion.
move that we approve agenda item number 14.
I'll second a motion to approve item 14.
All right, I've got a motion and a second to approve and authorize item number 14 with the 4,100. All in favor, say aye.
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 All right. Item number 15, and we'll have to hold on 1 second because my computer is not allowing me to sign in. Okay, thank you. All of my notes and everything are on the computer. Are you signed in? Oh, you don't have your computer.
I'm just using paper.
I think they have a problem. Mine won't either.
Yours won't sign in either?
I had some problems earlier, but I had paper at the time, but yes.
Can,
It only
let me
happened a
get,
couple hours ago.
is that the one that was uploaded, that we uploaded? Okay. All right, if this is great, thank you. That's the link, yes. Okay. All right. Well, we'll work off the paper then. So number 15 is to adopt a resolution amending the Utah County policy for food and gifts for county business. Number 2, the food policy on here, of course, the last time we consolidated some things, and then we also moved things around. There were some questions in there. And this does not have my underline, so I'm sorry. I'm going to have to just kind of read down through it. There are some, like 2.8 says, staff appreciation. A department may recognize and show appreciation for its employees by providing meals and/or refreshments at staff meetings or holiday parties. Well, thank you. The total amount budgeted and expended for these meals and refreshments shall not exceed, and then that is blank. It's a dollar amount blank. I know there was some discussion on that. I believe the original was 16. $15.
Commissioner Lee, just to make sure, are you working off of the draft that was circulated by Dave Shawcroft?
No,
Earlier in the
there was another one. There was another one that was uploaded right after that one. Actually, that one was, so there was on the agenda, we had the one from last week, and then there
Yep.
was another, and then it was sent to me, and I uploaded another version. So I'm working off the version that's in the agenda system. So there might be some confusion off of, two different suggestions to it, that's for sure.
2.8 has staff appreciation as a blank.
Yeah. The 2.8 was one that was 15. There were some discussions of taking that to 18 or 20, whatever.
And, yeah, and 3.4 was a discussion on the specific amounts for the years, but that's been no changes made to it.
And then if we look at 3.1 and 3.5, they're very, very similar. There are some differences between 3.1 and 3.5. One, of course, 3.1 has the $75 per gift, but it also does talk about, extending some of the gifts specified by department, providing gifts as indicated in the policy. And then 3.5 also talks about the Board of County Commissioners and department heads may provide gifts to the county employees in recognition of their extraordinary professional achievements that further the mission of the county or the department, and may provide a gift to a person not employed. So the difference is this one has a not employed in here, under the which 3.1 does not. But we do have, it looks like a little bit of a double up there on, unless they're seeing something different. Dave, do you see something different in there?
I think there probably is some redundancy there. I think 3.1 generally is for recognition. And 3.5 expands that to those outside of the county.
So if we took the wording on the recognition of those that are outside the county, because we do give recognition to some of those that are not employees of the county. For instance, of our state of the county, it might be a business of the year or a person. If we put that wording underneath the 3.1, all in general provisions, would that cover?
It would.
And that way it would be tagged. We wouldn't have to worry about the dollar amount because it would already have the dollar amount tagged to it.
Correct.
And then under 3.8, this is volunteers. If members of the community volunteer to serve Utah County government in any capacity, the department utilizing those volunteers may provide appropriate appreciation gifts not to exceed the cost of, and that number is also left blank. That one's new. That one, we always had the volunteers in there, but in this case, it'd be a certain amount. And then the last one would be staff appreciation gifts when conducting staff and/or internal administrative meetings or holiday parties. A department head may provide appreciation gifts. The total amount budgeted and expended for these appreciation gifts shall not exceed, and I believe the old version had $15 on there too. So this one's the gift one. The other one that we have is a meal one. So maybe we can start at the end with it. What's the thoughts on the staff appreciation gift one, 3.9?
I think that Ralph recommended 18 to 20. Generally, I would say, Commissioner Lee, I appreciate what you've done on this. I think these are good changes, needed changes. So yeah, I am happy to just drop in the values here, or if there's any cleanup needed on that non-county employees. Other than that, I think this looks great, and I'd be fine with, he mentioned 18 to 20. I mean, we could do 18. Really, I think on each of these. Okay.
Again, I think that's consistent if we went with, and again, I'm not advocating one way or the other. With the 18's reasonable. The other one dropping the value in would be under the food policy one, staff appreciation, department may recognize and show appreciation for its employees by providing meals and or refreshments. Now, this one I was, it's an interesting one because I think that we do have a certain policy when it comes to, on a per diem rate. But we could make that less, but I'm just wondering if we shouldn't keep it with a per diem rate. If you're providing a meal for breakfast, it would fall underneath that the federal guidelines with that, or with lunches or dinners.
This is Ralph Barnes, HR. So I think the way it was written, when it was first written, was that the amounts were actually supposed to be combined. Is that the way you saw it, Dave? In the
Yeah, the intent here is to separate out, so
in the
meals
meal
are separate
section
from
and the gift
gifts.
section. So when I say 18 to 20, I'm talking about.
Oh, you're talking about total?
So that would be 10 each, if you
But-
went 20.
I don't know if you could even do a meal though.
I know, I
for
realize that.
dollar amount. That's
So-
why we're separated out.
The separation is what's kind of changed, changed the dynamic, because originally it was, the $15, which was supposed to be for both. I do think that the per diem rate makes sense for the meals, and then the other amount for the gift would be fine.
I'm fine with having them, I'm personally fine with having them separated,
Yeah.
having a dollar amount in that gift one,
Same.
and then having it with, probably tied to the per diem rate for
For
food.
meals.
For meals.
I think that makes sense. I think that's what we should do too. I would agree with that. So,
So that language
Hey,
would be,
Commissioner Lee, one thing I'm trying to understand, I actually finally was able to get back into the agenda system and see this new version. I think the only new change that I have a question about is we've reinserted a gift in 3.4. And I know that we talked about that, of having like a recognition memorial gift. I like that term. But those dollar amounts seem very high to me for if that's what it was for. It's like those dollar amounts in the previous draft were just used for banquets for a whole department or something like that, or a reception. I don't think that a plaque for an employee recognition is necessarily also the right dollar amount for a recognition memorial gift.
Yeah, I'll tell you my dilemma with it, and I'll go with either way we go with this. If the county had a memorial gift that was given at 5, 10, 15, 20 years of service, whatever that is, it would be easy to say, let's just go with that. They get that automatically after those services, and then this $100, $150, $200, and $300 for a reception could be used. I couldn't find a way, frankly, to allow for, I think sometimes people recognize and like that memorial gift more than they do the little reception. And so I wanted to find some way that could be incorporated into it. And that's the reasoning behind it. I would think that this would be, if you wanted to do a plaque of some sort and it cost you, I don't know, 25, 30, 40 bucks, then that would come out of the total for the reception as well. I wanted to find a way that the departments and the county somehow could give some sort of memorial gift or plaque that they could take with them.
And I like that principle. I agree with that principle. Okay, and in my reading of this, that was not entirely clear. Now I can see how you can read it that way. So you're saying it's a total cap.
Total cap.
Of the reception and the gift.
yeah.
And I know where you're going with it, because the thought could be, well, I don't want the reception, so I just want a $300 gift. I personally think that would be stretching the intent of what we're trying to do here with this. But is there a way to word it differently? I don't know.
How about replacing the word "or" with "and," with a reception, refreshments and a recognition memorial gift not to exceed? Would that achieve what you're envisioning?
So Commissioner Lee, the other thing that I know is your intention, which is why I've been so supportive of this, is that what we don't want to do is get back to the same habit that there's been issues with, where people who are leaving maybe have in mind a particular gift that they really think the government should give them.
Right.
On the taxpayer's dollar and dime on the way out. And I think all of us are aligned of getting rid of that concept, especially for appointed and elected officials. So with these dollar amounts and without defining this gift, because I think what your intention was really more of is having a nice employee recognition item, whatever employee recognition program we're under at that time, whether it's a crystal or a plaque or some way to recognize their service. I have no issue with that. I think that's a great program. I just don't want, the way this is written now, I would hate to get back to the problem we're trying to solve, like, oh, hey, I have $300. Can you give me X, Y, or Z for that value?
Yeah, and you're hitting it right on. I'm not sure how to craft that is the concern with it, I guess, is the problem. We're eliminating, I mean, I don't know of any, well, per se, I don't know of any issues with, employees who are going and retiring or leaving employment. Most of the issues that we're talking about seem to be on the appointed and the elected officials, and now that we're putting everybody under the same umbrella, I'm hoping that kind of alleviates some of that, but I can see, some of the challenges that may come in. One of the offsets that you have is that an employee who's leaving after 20 years, the appreciation, reception, and recognition memorial gift and so forth is probably going to be determined by a supervisor or a department head, which gives you a little bit of separation. But when you have an elected official or an appointed, department head, they're the ones that are making the decision on it, which has, as we've seen, led to some concern. And so
yep.
I don't know how we separate that when we're trying to put everybody in the same classification when it comes to a gift policy, elected, appointed, everybody who works for the county employees.
Here's a suggestion. 3.6 already kind of carves out HR administered standard programs, right?
Yeah.
If we have an incentive for safety, we have an incentive for special bonuses that Ralph is administering on a countywide basis, those are not subject to this policy. What if we had included in that is just HR administers a standard, that's part of the recognition for employees. So then whatever that memorial gift is, that's administered by HR, and it's a standard one, right? It's not, you're not trying to shop for gifts for each individual retiring employee.
I like that. I mean, that does give separation, and then that would be consistent with, so everyone who retires or leaves employment at 5 years, they get this kind of the same plaque or the same crystal or whatever,
yep.
all the way through, and then the rest of it, the one with the dollar amounts are just for receptions. I like that. I think that would work. Ralph, do you have some concerns on that or questions? You're going to have to be administering some of this.
No, actually, I don't have any issues with that. I think that makes sense. I would want to have an idea of, 50% of the balance or whatever, or a flat rate that would, take away from that total to make sure we stay within that amount. $50, $75, something like that for the gift, and then the rest can be used for.
So you're seeing it as a subtraction from. So like on the 5 years of service, there's $100 in there. And so out of that $100, you would have $30 to use for a.
That's how I would see it. But we could also do it, separate, completely separate.
So what I would suggest is, I know that Ralph actually had made some recommendations about increasing those amounts as well, but I think we don't. We leave the existing amounts, and then we can say that the recognition program is separate. And right now, in this document, we don't have to determine what the budget is for that. That's a separate program, kind of like the Snappy Gift or the other program where Ralph can go out and bid, and maybe that changes over time, of what the right kind of departing employee
I think that's great.
I do
incentive.
too.
Yeah.
I think that'll work exactly how we want it to work, and I will make sure that you guys get some say in the selection of what that
So then-
parting gift is.
So then we would need to strike, after the or, just put a period on refreshments from all these A, B, C, D, and E.
No, we would leave the dollar amount, correct?
Oh,
We wanna leave
yes.
the dollar amount. You
So we
just-
would strike or recognition of a memorial gift,
Correct.
and then
In-
leave the
in-
not to exceed the total of.
Right, in each
Yes.
of those subsections.
Okay. And then in section 3.6, is there anything we need to do to 3.6?
May include,
I kind of think that we're acknowledging that in this meeting. So as long as, you know, Ralph's employee appreciation program includes such gifts, they're covered under 3.6 and not the rest of the document.
Yeah, they are, and Ralph, I think according to 3.6, he would just need to write that up and have that in writing for us, and then we just approve it and be ready to go. Okay. I love that, great. And then on 3.8.
I think I can make that motion. Oh, yeah, if you keep going through, that's what I was wondering.
No,
what
I
the
just
other
wanted to reiterate to make sure that we're on the same page. So under 2.8 with the staffing appreciation, that blank spot in there needs to be as per, the meals will be as per our, what do you call it, per diem, or as our,
the term per diem is previously identified, so we could just put not exceed, let's see, shall not exceed the per diem rate per employee per year.
okay, so that will be in there, shall not exceed the per diem.
Would that be a
But is that a
per
yearly
day?
rate? or
Would
is
that be a
just
daily per diem?
Oh,
or would
that should be
a meal per diem, right?
per meal, correct?
Per meal.
Yeah, that'll be a per meal, not
Right.
Okay.
not per year, per,
Per day, not daily rate.
yeah, that's a good
I think it's
catch.
a meal day, they break it down by meal according to what meal you're having.
Which is probably gonna wind up being more possibly than just a set amount. If you have 2 meals, whatever. There's gotta be budget for it too. And then we, and then on 3.4, we would, A, B, C, D, and E, we would strike out or a recognition of a memorial gift on all of those.
That's A through D.
A
not
through
including E.
A through D, thank you.
Right.
Yes, very good, Kay. And then we have, on 3.8, it'd be $18 per gift, and on 3.9, the same, $18 per gift.
My only other question, Commissioner Lee, was on 3.5. Are we making change or are we leaving that
Oh,
concept?
You're gonna move the language.
we're gonna move the language on that. Yes, thank you for catching that. I had that striked. We're gonna move the language on that one to 3.1. And so we would strike through most of 3.5 except for the language that gives us the flexibility to provide gifts. What's the proper language there? Professional achievement for our mission, county department. It would be the one where it says, and may provide a gift to a person not employed by the county in recognition of their extraordinary professional achievement that furthers the mission of the county or the department.
So we'll move that up and then
And then we don't have to worry about the dollar amount because there's already a dollar amount in
Right.
there.
we'll delete 3.5 and renumber the balance.
Yes. So we'll wind up with a 3.8 total. Yes.
Okay. I move that we approve. Now I got to find the agenda item we're on. agenda item number 15 with the changes that have just been recorded as outlined by Commissioner Lee.
Second that motion.
I got a motion and a second to adopt the resolution amending the Utah County Policy for Food and Gifts. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Okay.
I think was that an aye, Commissioner Ainge?
Yes, aye.
Okay, that passes 3-0. Okay, number 16 is to adopt a resolution regarding the nomination and proposal to designate Bridalveil Falls as a state monument pursuant to the State Monument Act. We've had some great discussion about this with Representative Kevin Stratton and the State Parks Division and others. I think it's important that we state that this resolution is a resolution with non-binding. It is a resolution to support the process and the process that the state is going through. Once they go through the process, then we'll have the opportunity to agree or to work with them on what it looks like, and that's what this resolution is about.
Correct, and then, and to be noted on the bottom paragraph of page 1, this is a potential nomination, so we're still waiting for the outcome of the legislative action and potential future follow-up actions by the legislature.
Yes.
So this is one that I've struggled with because I don't know if I understand what the benefits are to becoming a state monument. I don't know if there's been talk of resources, but right now we don't know if there's any resources.
True.
And I would be concerned if going down this path kicks off a 2 or 3 year study period, and during that time, the county becomes hesitant to invest the resources that we've already set aside, the $1.5 million to improve Bridalveil Falls. You know, I know that we were actually supposed to get that done in 2021 or 2020. Now, I know Public Works is prepared to work on it. So those are some of my questions. And the other question is simply a procedural one of, I know that there was another draft circulated by our attorney's office. And so I want to make sure we're talking about the same resolution.
Yes, Rob, why don't you talk about the resolution first?
Rob Moore, County Attorney's Office. So the resolution that's on your agenda today is the latest version of the proposed resolution, as mentioned by Commissioner Lee, to kind of agree to go through the process, or at least support going through the process without making any commitments. Per the statute, what's going to happen, or what should happen, is a plan is developed for Bridalveil Falls area, the properties that Utah County currently owns. And as part of that, and you'll see this in the resolution, it says that a report regarding this proposed monument includes an analysis of the state's financial cost of maintaining the proposed state monument and identifying an ongoing funding source to ensure costs associated with maintaining and protecting the state monument are available, and present that report to the county. That language is actually in the statute governing state monuments, which is why it's in our resolution today. So what I anticipate happening is that the state is going to prepare a report which will identify the cost of maintaining Bridalveil Falls properties if they were to become a state monument, and also to identify the ongoing funding source to ensure that the ongoing costs are available for protection of the monument going forward. So this resolution, as mentioned, is a non-binding. It's just saying the county is supportive of going through this process. It does not commit us to any certain action at this point. And if you want to make changes, you're welcome. We can make changes, but whatever you'd like to do. Commissioner Ainge, did you have any further questions about that?
Okay, so, well, that was the main thing I wanted to clarify is, so what's actually uploaded into the system, that is the same as what you sent a red line
Yes,
to
yes.
previously? Okay. I guess my only other question is, this is great language, it is non-binding. From a legal perspective, I know that those working on this have indicated that there is at some point, whether it's binding to the county or not, at the state level, a resolution from the county is a trigger point, is something that's written into code. And I wanted to make sure that there was no possible way that this resolution could be viewed.
Yeah, there's not because a separate action would have to be taken place on that. And then in that case, then we would, and that would be after the study, that'd be after the funding look, that would be after we've had negotiations on what that looks like in the way of ongoing expenses. And so it does not, right now, this resolution doesn't trigger anything. All it does is send a signal that there's some interest, or else the state, if there was no interest on Utah County's part to even consider this, then they might as well just drop it as a bill up in the House, because they can't force us into it. They have to get approval from Utah County to even move forward.
Commissioner Ainge, that's correct. So as mentioned here, the process is that they'd prepare that plan and present it to the county, and the county then can support that if they desire to do so by action of the county commission. And that would then move the process towards becoming a state monument. This here is just to, and it's been modified since last week when we discussed this, because last week it was a little more direct. This one is more of just, again, agreeing to the process, so that we can go through that, because the statute really does contemplate that the plan we prepared first, and then the county has a chance to review that plan and then decide whether they want to support that plan. And that's really what the statute was meant. We were kind of going a little bit backwards on this process.
Well, there's two ways. It can go both ways.
It can go both ways, but I think this is the way that, I know the commission has told me that they're concerned, at least commissioners have told me they're concerned with agreeing to it without seeing the plan.
Right.
And I think that's kind of the key here, is that this would require the plan to come first, then allow you to agree to it. So that's really where we're at now. I think there was something else I was going to say, but I don't remember. Oh, one other question that you raised, Commissioner Ainge, with me was whether if it was become a state monument, would it be subject to the conservation easement? And I think the answer is yes. There's language in this resolution that makes it subject to all easements, right-of-ways, etc. And when I've talked to state parks, they've acknowledged such that they would be subject to the conservation easement as well, and they realize that.
Yep.
So another question I have is, I've been working, obviously we all worked to put this into a conservation easement last year, and then to set aside some funds for this. It's always great to get additional parties who might be willing to put some resources in. For example, I even think the city of Provo could, as a neighboring property owner, if they wanted to participate in some ways, I'm all for the more the merrier, embracing this side and bringing some resources to the table. But if there aren't any resources from the state, we're all hoping that there is there any benefit to designating? That's what I haven't figured out. I can't understand what it even means to be a state monument.
So for me, I think it's a two-pronged. First, and I think that the heavier prong on that is that there are resources that will come from the state. If the state says we're not going to do any resources to this as a state monument, I think that becomes very hard for us to then work through the process and just say, call it a state monument. But I think if we get some resources from the state, and possibly, like you mentioned, others who might be willing to do so, then I believe that the state monument designation on maps or as people are looking, for travel purposes, they will see a state monument which pops up, like state parks. They'll come into the state or the county and say, what do we have to see? And it shows up as a tourism, possible destination, that they can go to. So I think for me, those are the two areas that stand out. But without the funding, I think it would be hard for us. It'd be hard for me to say, okay, we got that one side of it, but now how much is it still being controlled, or what's the management look like from the state side if they wanted to say they have, a say in the management of it without putting any funding in? I think that'd be odd.
Yeah, and I see that in the last two sentences of this resolution, where we have a condition that we're expecting a return of what the state will do to maintain this designated park. So to me, we're not giving away anything. I think we're holding the state responsible for what they intend to do and provide a report back to us as to how they're going to carry this out.
One question I have is, let's say the state brought a meaningful amount of resources, but they also wanted to have significant management and charge entry fees. I don't necessarily view that as a positive development.
I don't either.
For us, and so I don't know if we would want to include something like that in this resolution. That, or if not, I mean, at least we're having the conversation now.
Yeah. I would prefer keeping it out of this resolution, because this is just a signal, and at any point in time, we could always say, no, we're done. We don't want to go that direction anymore. If we felt like it was going in a direction that we couldn't also support.
And Commissioner Ainge, remember, this is Rob Moore again, you'll have a second chance after the plan is presented, report, to decide whether that's something you want to get behind or not. And at that point, if the plan includes a proposal for fees, I think that's something you certainly could address at that point.
Yeah, fair point. I just would hate to send a message. I would have someone spend 6 months developing a plan for fees if that's a non-starter for us from the very beginning.
I think the Parks Department, state parks, they know that. I mean, I have expressed that to them. I know that Kevin Stratton has expressed that to them. The other part of this was possibly going to it on a state park basis, which then where they get funded from, if it comes through general fund, that might be a different conversation. But generally, state parks do have fees attached to them. And I mentioned to the state park director Rasmussen, I said, I'm not in favor of that. And I think Kevin Stratton's the same on that as the bill sponsored. So I think they are fully aware of some of those concerns.
Well, and let me get a perspective at the county level. If we pass this and the state is starting to look into this, are we still moving forward with our $1.5 million of improvements this spring and summer into Bridal Veil Falls?
I would say no, and the reason why is because once they come with their management designation on what they're going to possibly put into it, we may have to do a certain amount of matching. And if we already have stuff on the ground and in there, and I hate to say that because all these years I've been trying to get something done up there, but I think if they come forward and say we want to do it as is, what it is right now, and we've already put all these improvements in there, then it would be a double match. And I would prefer that we just go through the process and see what the state will do and what the plan looks like, and if we agree to it, then we move forward.
I understand what you're saying, but just understanding the pace of government, I'm concerned with that. If we were saying wait till the end of the legislative session and see what happens, I get that. But if this is going to go into a black box or a review process or a study process, I don't want to wait a year or 18 months or 2 years sitting on those funds. There's improvements over there that need to be made now, and that frankly, again, Commissioner Lee, you helped approve those in 2019, and we all kind of hope that those have been done already.
Yeah, I don't have the total answer to that. I guess, and from what when I was talking to them about a timeline, they were anticipating that the timeline for the study and everything would be done this year, and that the improvements and working on it would probably happen in the spring of 2022. Frankly, that's the timeline they gave me.
Richard Nelson, Public Works.
Oh, go ahead, Richard.
I'm just going to add one thing here. Working with Utah Open Lands, they are in the process of applying for outdoor recreation grant for some of the improvements up there. It's about $150,000 that they're looking at. It is a 50-50 match, so the work that we would be doing would be the match portion of that. There is a time constraint on when that has to be done by for that grant process, so that we have the opportunity to pick up about $150,000. The discussion was not that we were going to add additional improvements there, but it would offset some of our costs with what was already approved by the commission. So that is one consideration there, is that if it's, I think they told me 2 years that those improvements have to be done on that outdoor recreation grant. I think you were on that same email, weren't you, Rob? So that is something that's in the works as well. So if we were not able to do the improvements within that 2 years, that we would not be eligible for that grant.
Well, Richard, my understanding is there was also a coordinating effort with Central Utah Water District as well. Correct. That had some work that needed to be done this year.
Yes, some of the things that were approved, the commission approved an easement for Central Utah Water in November, December timeframe. They have some pipeline work they will be doing right there at Bridalveil. Part of what we were looking at in coordination with Central Utah Water was doing some of the improvements in conjunction with them, so that they didn't put it back and then we wind up tearing it out to redo it for a new and improved method that we only have to do it one time. Saves both parties some money, so that's another consideration that's coming up there for the improvements. So.
What were they intending to do? What kind of improvements?
Central Utah?
With that grant you were just speaking about?
It would be, they took our plan that we developed, and there's certain aspects of it, the trail improvements, the parking areas, the restroom, things like that are all eligible for this grant. So it would all be those same improvements. Okay. Basically what they would do is they would get the grant and provide it to the county, and we would still move forward with the project. They would not be doing a separate project with it.
It would be interesting, because we haven't had this conversation, but it would be interesting if we move forward with some of the plans that we already had in place. If the state would recognize that as, the matching portion. I haven't had that conversation, so I don't know. But if they would agree to that, even into the future, if we agreed to go with their plan, that'd be great. If we didn't, we still, we're still, I just haven't had that conversation, so I'm not sure.
And State Parks reached out to me when this first came up about the state monument and wanted a copy of our plans. We submitted that to them or shared that with them. The response I got back is they were fine with all the improvements, didn't see any concerns or conflicts with what we were planning with what would be in a state monument. So that would be a good conversation to have.
Yeah.
When's that 2-year limit over?
It would be from when the grant would be awarded, and that would be later on this year. I don't know an exact date.
I do think it looks like there's some public comment on this topic, so obviously before a vote, we'll listen to the public comment. But I already think that could be an interesting addition to this resolution, Commissioner Lee. I mean, there would be no binding effect of it, but we simply state that we are operating under the understanding that any improvements we make to the site from or after the date hereof will be included in any matching requirement.
Yeah, let's put that in the resolution. I mean, sure. You bet.
Okay. You'll do that by motion when you're ready. When you're ready.
Yeah, before we have a motion on it, I've got a note from Alice that there are some members that would like to comment on this. So Alice, if you would navigate that. Oh, there's some here? If there's anybody here, not seeing any, okay, let's do the Zoom one, son. Okay, Brigham Daniels is one that we have that would like to make comment. Go ahead and unmute yourself, Brigham, and we'll see if.
Can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
Excellent, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to comment. I appreciate your careful consideration of this issue, Commissioners. I've tried to speak to each of you over the past few weeks, and I've had bits and pieces of conversations with all of you. I appreciate the time that you've given me and the thoughtfulness that you've shown. I am a volunteer for an organization called Conserve Utah Valley, and this nonprofit was actually founded as a result of our concerns about Bridal Veil Falls being developed. What I will say is, as an organization, we are very grateful for the actions that the Commission has already taken. We believe that the conservation easement was a necessary first step. We were encouraged and grateful that not only you had considered funding for Bridal Veil the same night, but it actually increased that funding. And we believe that state monument status is the next step to protect Bridal Veil Falls. Just to address one of the concerns that Commissioner Ainge raised, why do this? I think that you do have to walk forward with a little bit of hope and good faith that the other parties have in mind the same thing. What I think everyone has in mind is that Bridal Veil Falls is a spectacular place. Its ease of access is very rare in the world. To find it such a beautiful place, it's so easy to get to. It's a very special place for a lot of people, and I think a lot of people just want to protect it. And our organization is moving forward under that assumption that that's the main goal. So I do appreciate a lot of the concerns people are raising. What the state, I think, can bring is not only resources but expertise. I mean, the state has experience in, whether it's coral pink sand dunes or, Goblin Valley or any of the other sites that they manage. They have a lot of experience ensuring that the sites are protected, that people are safe, that good experiences are had. And I think that those experts there could be an additional resource that you ought to be thinking about when you're thinking about why this might make some sense. I would say that, I think that there may be some people. I delivered a petition to each of you this morning that had about 625 people have signed it, most of them in Utah County, supporting this idea to make it a monument. I think that all of them would probably be somewhat disappointed if what that ended up doing was saying, you're not going to spend money on improvements in the meantime. I have had a number of conversations with Representative Stratton. I believe that he is working with the intent of trying to protect this place. And I think one of the things that you can rest assured of is that you will know by the end of the legislative session what kind of deal you're getting. I mean, it's possible you can get him to change his resolution as well. But at any rate, I am grateful that you all are considering this. I'm grateful that you're worried about the place. A lot of people love it, and I'm one of them. And I'm just here to thank you for giving me some of your time over the past few weeks and for being so careful and thinking this one through, because it's important.
All right. Thank you, Brigham. Are there others that you know of, Alice? Okay. Seeing there's no other public comment. A motion would be in order.
I'll make a motion that we adopt the resolution on item number 16 as written.
Are you going to insert?
Actually,
I would be happy to make that motion.
yeah. Go ahead, Connor.
Okay. I would move that we approve item number 16, with a modification to the resolution stating that the county intends to continue spending the $1.5 million that have been set aside for improvements to Bridal Veil Falls, and operates under the expectation that such funds will be considered as part of any required match by the state.
I'd like to do a counter motion on that. I'd like to put a motion that we adopt this with the insertion that we include in our negotiation any funding that was put into this process without naming a dollar amount, because we may have additional grants along the way as part of the negotiation. I hesitate to say the $1 million, because if the state comes back with something better and we've already put it in, it may be that we've taken perhaps a larger than lion's share of the costs to make it a state monument. Does that make sense?
So you're making that as a friendly motion?
Yes, I'm making a friendly.
As a friendly motion to the
yes.
motion?
Yes. That we
I
adopt.
don't know if I quite understood it. Maybe I can reiterate a little bit. So as I understand it, there's $1.1 million that we had.
That we set aside.
Just 1 million? Well, I thought we had 1.1, and then we had an additional 500,000, so that puts us at 1.6. So I'm going to your point of not putting a dollar amount in there.
Yes.
And then if we also get a grant that comes in, if we start tagging dollar amounts to it, anyway, I think we're just,
I didn't want to commit us to a dollar amount if we wind up spending perhaps even more than the state, or perhaps exceed what the state would have granted to us. We may have overspent when we could have gotten a better negotiated rate with the state.
So I would recommend maybe that your friendly motion to it would be to include language that say any monies that we spend, not up to a dollar amount, but any money spent would be considered as part of the match.
Correct. That would be the best way to.
Commissioner H.
So I consider part of that friendly and part of it not. So
Okay.
I appreciate that point of clarifying that, maybe there's 1.6, and with the outdoor recreation grant, maybe there's more. So tagging the exact dollar amount may not be wise, but my motion was that we continue the allocated funds. And so, Commissioner Sakovic is also making the point here, and this is the part I disagree with, that we shouldn't be spending these funds because we have to wait for the state. And what if the state has a better match than we spent the money we shouldn't have? I guess what I'm saying is I'm not willing to wait for the state. I do want to spend this money that we have set aside. It's not going to happen all at once, but Public Works has a plan, and I think we should keep operating according to that plan. He even indicated some good comments about he's been in touch with the state, and they've kind of signed off on what they've already outlined. So I think it's time to get going on that.
And that's where my friendly motion, counter motion would be, if we would pursue the grant that was just brought up during this meeting, that would at least give us perhaps as much as 300,000 between the grant, and if we were put in 150, that would give us at least 300,000 to have begun the improvement processes even before we hear what the final outcome of the state monument designation and associated costs might be. So we cap it at our cost at 150, the grant's 150. We got 300 to do some work and get the planned projects going without committing to the other 1.1, 1.6 million that has been discussed and previously approved.
I know, and this is my challenge. I know that there's been a hesitation on your part, Commissioner Sakovic, to approve. The 500,000 that we approved at the end of December, that was approved by the county commission. So like in the budget system right now, that needs to be approved in our internal accounting system. That has not actually been sent over to be allocated. But the legislative decision has already been made by the county commission. So there's no question about that.
Yes, and I hear what you're saying. I requested that we not go through with the additional 500,000 until we hear the results of the monument designation first, because this is a new environment that was not taken into consideration last year because it didn't exist.
So just unpacking what you just said, Commissioner Sakovic, I don't think that that's even possible. Again, the previous commission already acted to allocate those funds.
I understand that, and I was thinking that perhaps the current commission could perhaps reverse itself on some of that based on the new information we now have before us.
So again, we can't reverse ourselves on that. That's something that's been set aside. That's what the public wanted. It's something that we've all been planning on. Now, in terms of the timing of this, if we are in control of our own funds, so I thought I think that's what Commissioner Lee was saying is, there's some phasing. It's our own money at the county, so we can kind of time the improvements however we would like. But to suggest that we are going to reverse the action of the previous commission to set aside additional 500,000, so it's not even there, it's not even ready to be spent should it come about, I fundamentally disagree with that approach.
No, I hear what you're saying. I just said if the state were to come in with X dollars and we came with X plus $3, it doesn't make sense to me for us to spend more than is actually necessary to do the improvements. And that's why I thought when the idea of a grant that came up just a few minutes ago, that would actually start the process of what we were trying to do and agree to in 2020. We can get that funding and use that to begin the process, and hopefully in the next few months we'll have an idea where the state is standing on its intentions with the monument designation, with the funding as we've requested from them to maintain it, and all the other things that will be ongoing funding as part of this resolution. We'll hear back from them what they're intending to do, and that way we can then, so to speak, play our hand according to what the state's intending to do.
So that kind of throws a wrench, I think, in these entire conversations, because I think what everyone has been asking for this, I think if Representative Stratton were on, I know that the Conserve Utah Valley organization and others, it was meant to build upon what was done, right? If we're trying to go back and reverse what was done, whether that's with the money set aside or the conservation easement or anything like that, I think that's a major problem.
We may not reverse what we've already started. The idea is let's just hold off in committing to any additional funding if it's not necessary, is what I was thinking. If we have the $300,000 between the grant and our own resources from the 1.1 that was already set aside, that would be good to get things started. And hopefully we'll know where the state stands as that progresses. Likely we'll have a pretty good idea before we finish that first phase. And we may not need to reverse it ourselves, but at least my recommendation is not spend the taxpayer dollars too soon, to allow to see what comes from the state first. And this resolution allows that without committing to a dollar amount, at least as is currently written.
So I think, just to jump in on the conversation a little bit, we are in charge of our own funds, and I can't see Public Works jumping out there and saying, now this has been approved and I'm going to go ahead and get the dozers up there and do stuff. I don't see that unless the commission is, on board with it. I think that the hesitation, and I feel some of the hesitation too, and that is that if the state agrees that we can go ahead and spend money now, I'm all in to say, let's go ahead. Let's start the process with the 1.6 or the other, whatever that amount is that we have in there, and let's move forward. If the state says, comes back and says, no, we're going to want to wait until we actually have a management plan in place, and then we'll determine what the matches look like. I'm going to be a little hesitant on that and say, let's go ahead and start the project without at least some sort of an understanding. And I think this resolution basically is just stating that we would like to have that consideration of expending the monies that we have already allocated, the 1.6, 1 point whatever million dollars towards that, with a consideration from them. And then before we actually start spending those monies and doing the work, we would have some sort of an agreement with the state.
So with that, I don't know if we need to insert, unless we want to insert something with the grant funding and maybe commit to that in the language.
Well, I'm actually fine with the motion stating that we, that in the resolution, we would like, and I can't remember exactly how Commissioner Angie worded that, but it was more along the lines that we would like this to be considered as part of the match funding. Again, we don't have to start anything until we solidify some of that, but just the wording in that language, in there gives us a talking point to move forward with.
So, I think that I have just a different approach. So I'm not going to be voting for this. So I'm not going to go through the effort of crafting a second motion.
Okay, well, let's see if we can, what about the resolution itself to nominate it as a proposal for a designation, to help that resolution?
That's what I'm saying. Ultimately, I'm uncomfortable. I was comfortable with the motion that I proposed, but it was under the understanding that we would continue with our plans. And so I'm not comfortable moving forward with this if the message from the commission to Public Works on this is that we're putting the brakes on the existing plans until we hear back from the state.
I was actually thinking that we could actually continue the plan using the grant and the county's matching funds and get the plan started. And Richard, how long would it take to get it started, and how long would it take to complete using just the $300,000? You don't have any specifics on hand, I know that, but roughly, what would you think, how long would it take and what would you accomplish with 300?
What we're anticipating is having some work ready to start in probably late April. And once the avalanche danger is kind of out of the canyon, that'll depend a little bit. If we keep getting snow like this, that might be late May, depending on where we get with avalanches. And then that also coordinates with what Central Utah is doing, so that we're working in conjunction with them and not duplicating efforts. For the 300,000, one of the first things we would likely do would be the new footbridge that would bring the Wild Trail traffic across on the other side of the river. That bridge will probably run somewhere in the neighborhood of about 150,000. The restroom facility is about 75,000. So that's 2.25. Then you start getting into parking areas and trail reconstruction. That would be the other items that would come into play there fairly quickly. So.
And how long would it take to do that if you got the green light to begin?
Like I said, if we could start with contractors and that, have the bids done and ready to go to where they could start work somewhere around the end of April, first part of May, that would be something that would happen over a 3 or 4 month period.
So roughly, if it was May, it'd be June, July, August, September timeframe, we'd be finished.
See, this is my problem with this. I think we're mixing this. This resolution is a non-binding resolution. All it is intended to do is to send a signal to the state that we are interested in the monument designation. It's not really to work out all the details and plans of how we proceed and go forward. I would prefer probably that we just adopt the resolution as stated, which gives that signal to the state. All the other nuances can be worked on, and we can work through those.
Yeah. That was perfect, Richard. Thank you. And
so, Commissioner Lee, I don't disagree with anything that you said, which is why I had no problem moving forward, approving and giving my support to a non-binding resolution. I think it's more from I'm okay sending that message to the state. I just don't want this message to send, this resolution to send a message to our own Public Works Department. And, you know, I'm only one of 3 commissioners. And so that's my objection here is, and there's phasing, so maybe there's some details here we don't care about. I'm not saying we go spend the 1.5 million next month. I'm just saying we do our existing plan. We're not slowing our plan. We're not waiting on the state. Whatever phasing and coordination with Central Utah Water and other organizations and the natural phasing of our $1.5 million project, we continue that plan and that we're sending that clear message to Public Works. I recognize that that is separate from this resolution to the state, but because that has come up in this conversation, that if we're giving this message to the state, we're therefore telling them to hold up. That's why I'm coupling the two, and that's the nature of my objection.
Okay, noted, and I respect that. I respect that opinion. I personally, you know, since this is an agenda item that I put on there, I would love to have, you know, a vote on the resolution that we have before us, you know, with the way that it's just stated in the resolution.
And that originally, that when we first discussed this, I was talking about that this is a resolution to support the potential nomination of it being a state monument, so it's yet to be seen what the specifics will be.
Right.
And we can begin the process of doing the repairs and improvements on the location using the county resources out at 1.1 that was already voted for last year, and then have 150 matched by this grant funding, and we could see at least some significant improvement between now and September. It seemed like that'd be good. And so the resolution to me was just open-ended, specifically to allow a dialogue that we support the intentions of what the state is doing. We want to see the details as it's outlined in the last 2 sentences, but it says we do support the process. And so I support it as it is without any of the additions of the grants in there. That doesn't really need to be in there. It's just a matter of we're supporting the process, what the state is doing.
That's all it is.
Says.
That's all the resolution is intended to do, is to send a signal to the state as they go through their process that Utah County is interested in looking at this as a potential monument.
So I'll make a motion that we adopt the resolution as written then, basically, and we don't need other things, but I would like to follow up with Public Works on getting other things started with that grant money really soon, maybe next regular agenda, if that can be done.
Was that a motion?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I drifted off about potentially getting the grant money started, project getting started.
But the motion is to adopt the resolution as stated.
As stated.
Okay.
Okay, I'll second.
I've got a motion and a second to adopt the resolution as stated on agenda item number 16. Any further questions, comments? Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Nay.
Okay, that's a 2-1. Commissioner Lee and Commissioner Sakovic in the ayes and Commissioner Ainge in the negative. Okay, number 18. I held this one, set a date, time, and location for a public hearing to discuss amending and increasing the 2021 budget in the Utah County General Fund and other budgetary funds related to the COVID-19 for Wednesday, March 3rd, 2021 at 3 p.m. in this room, 1400 of the Utah County Administration Building at 100 East Center Street in Provo. We have received some funds from the federal government, and for us to expend any of those funds related to COVID-19, we have to have it in the budget, and that's what the intent is for this public hearing. Any concerns or questions with that?
So is this about some of those issues of like final budget transfers? Because I thought that there's been some discussions on this topic, and the final budget transfers that we took legislative action on at year end are still working their way through the general ledger system.
Yeah, I don't think
So
this is not them.
The rental assistance.
This is the
program.
rental assistance program. We receive that money, and we can't expend any of that money unless we have it in the budget.
Okay, great. Thank you.
So if there's no further questions, a motion to be in order?
Is this something we could do after the regular?
No, we have to
I
set
move
this.
that we,
Go ahead.
I move that we approve and set the hearing stated in regular agenda item number 18.
And I second that motion for March 3rd.
I got a motion and a second to set that date, time, and location for a public hearing as stated in number 18 on our agenda. All in favor say aye.
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 That passes 3-0. We've got another one, number 22, is to set a public hearing to consider a petition to vacate a portion of plat, of the plat in Alberta Township, as stated in number 22.
I move that we set that public hearing.
Can I interrupt real quickly? Rob Moore, County Attorney's Office.
Can you hold 1 second? I do have a motion, so I'm wondering if there's a second to that, and then we'll take discussion.
I'll second the motion for that date.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Go ahead, Rob.
Sorry, I just become aware just a little bit ago that there is actually, this is only half of the public hearing we need. There's a second part that did not make it on your agenda. It was not submitted. So if I could suggest that you do approve this today, but you move the suggested date to April 7th, 2021, if you're having a meeting that day, and then we'll put on the agenda for next week the other half of this public hearing. Just real quickly mention that Alberta Town Site's a historic town site, and Commissioner Lee was involved many years ago in meeting with residents out there about trying to fix some of the problems. A lot of roads were identified in the plat but never built, and that's what these are. So we'll have more discussion at the public hearing.
All right, so Commissioner Ainge, are you fine with that change to April 7th instead of March 31st?
Yes.
And you're okay with the second on that still?
I'm okay with that.
So I've got a motion and a second to set that public hearing to consider the petition, and that will be set for April 7th, 2021. All in favor, say aye.
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 That passes 3-0. Number 23 is to approve and authorize the signing of an amended construction project removal bond agreement between Utah County, Utah, and Lance Bateman, Bateman Land and Livestock.
I have to hold it because I went through this, but I'm not completely clear, and I'd like some additional clarity added to what is being presented in the attachment.
Yeah, this is Ben Benoit from the County Attorney's Office. This is the existing bond that we're not requiring any more money. The Batemans are going forward with their improvements on some of the buildings at the county's request. And in order to do so, we had them, there was the building code and the community development required an additional conditional use permit agreement. So all this amendment to this bond agreement does is expand what that bond attaches to. Originally, it was attached to the first conditional phase agreement. It's now expanded to attach to this one as well, just so it incorporates the entire project. So that's all that is happening here with this amendment.
Was there specific language added to certain paragraphs?
There was. It was in, if you give me 1 second, I apologize. What was added was in the first page, in the 1, 2, 3, third whereas, it mentions incident to continued construction of the project. The conditions described in the amended conditional phase permit agreement, together with any addendums, amendments, or other conditional phase permit agreements. That other conditional phase permit agreements was what was added in order to incorporate the additional phase permit agreement. And that was all.
Okay. And the first line says, this agreement is made and entered into this blank day of August 2020. Do you recall the day that in August that this was originally, was initiated?
I can look it up real quick. Give me 1 second.
Because that should be part of it.
And this was finalized by the county on September 1st. So I'd be happy to go in there and make that change so it reflects that.
Okay.
Ben, one question that I'd have for you, and I thank you for our conversations the other day on this. If it turns out that there has to be an execution on, as stated in here, for potential removal of property, will that come back to the commission for some consideration?
Yes, it will. Per the agreement, the commission has to declare that they're in default. Okay. And then they have a 15-day period to cure that. And if they don't, it's at the commission's direction where we would execute that bond.
All right. Thank you.
And the other question I would have is paragraph 7. Bateman holds the county completely harmless from any of the costs that we may be doing, cost, expense, liabilities by us or representatives, employees, etc. If we as a county are at fault for something, they cannot hold us responsible for that fault. That's how I read 7. That's my only.
That's correct. Yes.
So if the county was, whatever reason, was careless in some form or another and caused some harm to the Bateman farms, then the Bateman has no recourse to be made whole.
So based off of that language, the indemnification would happen if somebody else, let's say, was to be suing the county for the county's tearing that down. Essentially, the Batemans would step in the county's shoes, essentially, and defend that action for us. So that is correct.
That one paragraph kind of stands out to me as maybe one-sided.
Indeed, and to be clear, that the Batemans are currently in violation of building code, and so these agreements were put together in order to allow them to continue to develop at their request, despite being in violation. And it has been agreed to by the Batemans twice now, so they're fully aware of that, and they agree to accept that burden.
Wait, so Tom, I'm trying to understand. Are you suggesting that you would rather have language that allows them to sue us?
If the county was careless in some form or another and caused harm to the Bateman farm, shouldn't the county be held responsible for it?
I don't think so. I want to protect us against lawsuits.
Right,
not
but
allow people.
But what I was thinking, if the county did something either deliberately or inadvertently and harmed the other party, it seems that for no other reason than we see it between individuals, that the county should be held responsible for something of its actions, whether deliberate or inadvertently.
I fundamentally disagree. This is a contract that they've written up to protect the county. And by the way, my understanding is that the farm has recognized that their own wrongdoing to put themselves in this situation. So, you know, these types of provisions should always be in there to protect the county from my perspective, because ultimately if the county has a lawsuit, that's taxpayer dollars that goes to pay.
Yeah, the county is an agent of the taxpayers, of the citizens of the county. And so we're acting as agents of the residents. And I'm just, in my feeling is that if we set a precedent with abatement, we might set a precedent for other individuals or organizations that the county, if it caused harm, again, deliberately or inadvertently by the actions of the county officers or employees, then perhaps the county should be responsible for the resulting harm. Because we are supposed to be servants to the county residents, to the people of the county. I would like to actually continue this. Maybe we can talk more about this later, maybe separately with Ben and the attorneys later on, and get some greater clarity.
So I'm just struggling to understand. That's something for another side to figure out on their own, not for us. And for the county, we should be protecting the county's interest with the vote of the county commission.
And to me, the county interest are the residents of the county, as well as the functions of the county government. We should be focusing on the operations of the county government as a government body. We ultimately actually only govern ourselves, the organization of the county structure. We don't govern the residents themselves, except, you know, obviously to collect taxes and keep Party A from beating up on taking away the rights of Party B. That's really ultimately the only jurisdiction the county has. We should be governing ourselves, not to the people themselves who elected us to this role, is my view.
This has been Benoi again. This is language that we routinely use, standard language, in these sort of bond agreements. And maybe Dave Shawcroft can correct me if I'm wrong, when it comes to government immunity and government liability. I'm not sure if that extends to intentional acts by the county. If county agents were to intentionally bulldoze a barn that they knew wasn't the subject property of the bond. Dave, correct me if I'm wrong, that I don't think that would cover that statutorily. So I don't know if there's a concern about those intentional acts.
Again, it'd be intentional and inadvertent, accidental actions.
Well, this is drafted to protect the residents of Utah County, the taxpayers, so that they don't end up paying out monies if there was an intentional act which would constitute a separate tort or, you know, a wrongdoing that's separate and independent from a contractual breach. That would be an entirely different matter, and I'm sure we would face a lawsuit if that were to occur.
It just said, here it says abatements won't come back to the county for wrongs that may have been put on abatements. That's my only hesitancy with this paragraph 7.
And the background of this is that they are currently in violation, and so the county is going out of its way as an accommodation to someone who is in violation of its ordinance, of the county ordinances. And the county is saying, look, we're willing to work with you, but these are the terms under which we're willing to do that. I mean, the other option is we don't do this at all and we just go to court against them and take action to have all these buildings removed, which I think is not what we want to do. So we viewed this as an accommodation to them in an attempt to try to work out something with them that work for them, and they've agreed to these terms.
So it sounds like, would you like to continue this? We've always given that commissioners
I'd like to
courtesy on
continue
that.
this at least
Continue it 1 week.
Another week, and maybe pick
I
this
don't
up.
see any problem with that for further conversation to kind of get to a sense of understanding. Would
Yeah, it just feels very sweeping to me is what I'm concerned about.
you like to make that motion?
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion, we continue this 1 week or to the next general commission meeting.
Second?
I got a motion, a second, continue item number 23 for 1 week. All in favor, say aye.
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 Can we take a 5-minute break? Is that all right?
I make a motion, we take a 5-minute break.
Okay, thank you. We'll be right back. Okay, we are back. Thank you for that recess. Checking, just a mic check to make sure, Commissioner Ainge, can you hear us?
Yes.
All right, very good. Okay, on our agenda, number 24 is to consider to take action to authorize Public Works to make improvements to the North County Equestrian Park for a drive-through COVID-19 vaccination center. I know there's a lot of interest in this, and I assume that there's probably people online that may want to make comments to it. We probably should go through and talk about the what it looks like and the plans that have been made so far. And I can see it on the screen here as a point for discussion purposes. And so I don't know who would like to take that lead, Richard?
Really quick, Commissioner Lee,
Yes.
are you aware of the changes?
I am aware of the changes, yes.
Okay. So I'm not sure that, I mean, even our Public Works and our County Health Department are no longer recommending that site for our next mega site. So,
Maybe that's a change that I am not familiar with.
About 2 o'clock.
What came across at 2 o'clock, so you're not recommending this site?
Let me do this. I'll give you just a brief overview of what we've talked about here on this site, because I think, and Eric can talk about the vaccination site and what we're looking at for a different alternative. This was brought to us about a week and a half ago and said, okay, hey, here's something we need to look at. Can we do this? The plan you see on the screen there is what we came up with in conjunction with the Health Department, Emergency Management, and Public Works. It does utilize a big chunk of the equestrian center property, primarily the driveways and the parking lots, and makes it so that we don't have the parking areas available for park users. There was some concerns about not having the park available for the park users. We've looked at some alternatives that could possibly accommodate that. That's shown over here, kind of on the right-hand side as the little road. You can see it going up in there by the stalls. After a discussion today and a look at another site, we think we found a site, I believe it came through Peter or through Eric, on looking at actually an indoor site that would be similar to the one we've got down at Shopko that's in American Fork. I'll let Eric talk about that, and then we can come back to any questions on this.
So I just want to make sure, since I must have missed the 2 o'clock meeting or something that went on at 2 o'clock. So this is not under consideration then now for a vaccination site?
I don't think you want to shut the door on it, but it's not the first priority.
So, yeah. Eric Edwards, Health Department. So this morning I received word that there is another potential opportunity that's fantastic, that is bigger than the Shopko. It has a bigger parking lot than the Shopko. It's right off the freeway, and it is currently being leased by Alpine School District. And they met this morning and talked about it and gave us the approval to utilize a space that's actually bigger than the space that's at the Shopko, and which is fantastic. And it's right off the freeway, right off of the 5th East exit. And so this would allow us to have a higher throughput site. It would be more convenient,
And
easier access.
Eric,
Yeah,
sorry,
go
just
ahead.
really quickly, is my understanding that that's emergency management when they were initially searching for sites in North County. They came across this site with its proximity to the freeway and the large parking lot, and it was on their radar as an ideal site. But at that time, we thought it was fully leased up.
Correct. We did not know who had actually leased it, and so that just became aware.
So then we moved on to other options like the North County Equestrian Park, and now you just heard that this is available. I just wanted that in there.
And we just, like, an hour before commission meeting started, they were able to open the doors, and we were able to walk through it with Richard and with Peter Quittner and the health department to see if it was viable, and it's going to work really, really well.
So why would we not close the door on this one then?
So I would hope that we could, if need be, if we needed a 4th location in the future, if we are not able to keep up with the amount of vaccine supply that needs to be distributed, it would be nice to have this as a lower volume. It wouldn't need to be as high volume as we had planned it, and we could scale it back to make sure that traffic flows were safe on the highways, and the lane, and have less of an impact on the equestrian users and others,
Well,
if need be in the future.
And I mean, I see the flow and the functionality of how things are moved around there. My biggest concern has always been with that little road that's out there. And I call it a little road because it's just a little 2-lane. It looks more like a county road than it does inside of a city, because there's no shoulders to it. There's no sidewalks or anything to it. I spent an evening last night with a whole bunch of residents up in that area. And I told them about the pandemic we're going through, and you even called me, Eric, in the middle of that meeting, to talk about it. But the safety issues on that road right now that is already at capacity, and we're going to potentially introduce 1,500 to 2,000 people onto that road. The safety issues alone were staggering. And of course, when you're in a cottage meeting like that, they're trying to pin you down all the time on how you're going to vote. And I said, there's no other options. I don't know of another option. So to hear that there's a possible another option that's available to me, I'm of the opinion that, on a vote like this, that I would be voting no, to moving forward with this. And let's just move to the next option. I'm just wondering why, we're trying to hold off on it.
If I can just address that on 6800 West, there is a project that's actually scheduled. It was Highland City is planning to bid it within the next month. I talked to the Highland City engineer and said, hey, if we actually do this vaccination site, can you hold and not go to bid on the project on 6800 to widen it?
Right.
So right now he is just holding, waiting to see where we are going to go as the county, because it would be a nightmare to have a construction project going on in the same area where we're trying to get this traffic in and out of the site. We share your concerns on trying to get traffic in and out. That's been a concern as we've met as a group on how do we get the traffic in and out of there. So I think, like Eric said, though, if we do look at it to where we do need to go back into another vaccination site at a later date, this is still a viable option. We feel like we've got a better one in place.
How could it be a viable option when we still have, I mean, you're talking about less traffic, and that would say that we're going to go down on the safety concerns of it, but the road's already at the maximum, it's past the maximum level. That's the reason why they're widening it, with the volume of traffic coming through. So any more that would be introduced, even if it was just a little bit, would be more than what it probably is capable of handling, for a site like this.
So we can, like I said, I just, we have to have vaccine distribution locations throughout the county. As of 2 weeks ago, this, even with its flaws, was the best option after scouring North County. And so we're, as of just this today, receiving word of this new site, gives us the opportunity now to have a North County location, and most likely not needing to use this one. And it also buys us time now to keep looking for additional sites. This one, if scaled back a lot, and with the improvements that could be made, could keep any traffic from building up on the already crowded road space there. But if this is not to be a site based on analysis of safety and everything else, then of course we would need to look elsewhere.
Because we would necessarily, tell American Fork City, or Highland City, to go ahead with their road project, and then they would start that project, which then would introduce other things into the evaluation into the future. And so, if we determine that it's not a site, then they're going to want to move forward with their road construction project, which then puts it into a whole different category again, for any possible consideration, which I don't think that we would even want to even consider that at that point.
So I'll just share a perspective on this. I'm glad that there's the good fortune of finding this other site. But I think just taking a step back, when we first started scheduling the vaccination appointments, we had over 70,000 apply in the first night for a vaccine appointment. And we all know that crashed our system. And we apologize to our residents, and it's been a challenge. But what's fascinating is that did not slow down our healthcare workers from being able to administer the vaccines. And we actually were able to get rid of or make use of all of our vaccine dose, which has been a huge push from the governor and lieutenant governor to make sure that we get through our doses each week. And we can't thank Public Works and our health department enough for doing that. I mean, after the federal government has spent hundreds of billions of dollars and the state and all of their efforts, we're kind of the last mile of getting these vaccines to our community. And so I agree with you, Commissioner Lee, that even if there were objections or people didn't, there are some concerns, it's not ideal. No site is going to be perfect. And when that was told to be our only option, I was ready to support that. And so for that reason, and then on top of all this, the county is not going to be the exclusive provider of these vaccines. The health department has been working to build out partnerships with the private sector to help with distribution. It's going to be at movie theaters. It's going to be at pharmacies and at stores. And so hopefully we can catch up, because right now we're doing about 5,000 a week vaccines. We need to be ready to administer 25,000 vaccines a week. And so the good news is I think that the equestrian table for now is off the table, and it might be off the table for good, but that's not because of some of the concerns. I'm grateful for the concerns. We're going to hear those today, but it's because we found a site that works. And if it turns out that we have additional demand and we need additional sites, we need to continue to have all options. In my opinion, this is priority number one. And I think that in speaking with some members of the community up north and of even the Equestrian Center, one, they want to know the long-term success of that park and that it's been neglected for too long and that we need to make sure that it's taken care of. But I think that people are willing to accommodate a temporary disruption of that park if it truly is an emergency for this vaccine. But the good news, again, it looks like that we're not even going to have to go there, but I'm going to make it clear that all of the county properties, if needed for distribution of the vaccine, are going to be available.
You know, and I appreciate that, and a lot of things that you said there, I completely agree with. Even with that group last night that I was talking to, they asked me point blank if I was voting for it, and I said I have no other options. There are no other options, and this pandemic is first and is top priority for us as a county. They were amazed, actually, that government can work as fast as we did to get things moving. It shocked them. They were used to things moving slower than that. And so I think that's a compliment to our group that is out there trying to get it done. But I want to pull back a little bit, because a concern is a concern. Originally, when we were looking at the Smiths out in Saratoga Springs originally, we were told that was a condemned building, and for safety reasons. Now I know that's probably changed. I heard that's changed. But at the time we looked at it because of safety concerns. We decided to pull back on that and look other places. And so because of safety concerns, you know, that was kind of taken off the table, at least for now, because of that concern. And so when safety concerns started popping up on my radar that were basically coming from the residents in the area and saying, do you know what this looks like? Do you know what's going on here? I have to take note to that. And then, you know, now when we're looking at this site being off, great, let's move to a different area. But even if we're looking into the future, you know, for potential sites, my hope would be that this would be like a last resort thing for us, that it is not one that we look at and fall back on because we can. It would be one that maybe the pandemic really ramps up and goes in a completely different direction than we ever anticipate. Otherwise, I would prefer that we take it off the table, you know, and take it off as permanent as possible for other considerations that we're looking at, because time is the essence. One of the questions I was asked last night that I couldn't answer was, I know the March 1st is when they're going to be moving that deadline down, and we're going to have all these vaccinations that are going to start coming, our direction. And the question was, well, What happens if we miss that deadline by a week? What's the ramification? Didn't have an answer to it. I know we want to hit those deadlines because we want the vaccinations coming this way. There are hundreds of thousands of people who want to get vaccinated. And so it is a top priority for me too. I told the group I was willing to support and move forward if I didn't have any other options, but because we do have another option, and for safety reasons, I personally like to take this off the table, on a permanent basis for us for consideration, unless there's really some other reasons that make it different.
Just to make a comment, we have had a handful of people trying to find these facilities throughout the county. The health director has only had himself. He still does not have a deputy director. That may change soon. But he's been running a lot of this on his own. He has supervisors that have run the basic functions of the county department, but he has given an enormous amount of his hours to simply get this up and going. The sheriff's department, their emergency management guy, has been the lead on finding the facilities. He's been working at it alone. We're hoping to get that changed in the next few days. I haven't seen anything come yet on that one, but we have had very, very few people actually available to do these location efforts to make it more effective. And so we've been working with the press of trying to get the vaccinations available to the public that want them. At the same time, trying to find where do we go next. And we have been talking about that constantly since the beginning of the year. And so this was an option because we thought we didn't have anything else. Now, all of a sudden, this afternoon, we have another option that we did not have until now. And so I'm glad that this came up. That was timely. And because we had concerns going into this, even without the other option, how are we going to make this work without interfering with the safety of the residents that use that road and that live in that area? So I'm willing to make a motion that we table this. Is that the right phrase? Or
I think it might be. I mean, I would hope I know there's a lot of people that are on Zoom or maybe want to be here to make a comment to it, and I would hopefully with the information that we have on this, that the comments maybe can be as brief as possible. If I could just ask that, and I would like to open up for some comment. Yes, go ahead, Allison, and announce those who have probably raised their hand or made.
Okay, it looks like we have a couple on Zoom.
I wonder if Alice, is there people in the room that would like to make a comment that have come specifically for this? No? Okay, let's go to the Zoom then.
Perfect. Okay, let's start with Nico Pesci. If I pronounced your name incorrectly, I apologize. If you want to go ahead and unmute yourself and proceed with your comment.
So the only thing I appreciate the commissioners taking the time to hear us all out, and Commissioner Lee for the time last night. An email was sent to all three of you last night by myself to kind of point out some of the concerns that I think are already being addressed here, specifically the traffic one. If I may echo what Commissioner Lee said, as a resident of that area, this is a location that I beg of you guys to consider as an absolute last resort. The traffic pattern of that road on 1600 West, 2 lanes, no shoulder, no sidewalk. If there's any overflow, you're going to have cars backed up on the street. But more importantly, with the amount of children that walk up and down that road, especially if we move into the spring and summertime, you already have people who are flying down that road at comical speeds. You're asking for a child to get hit at some point if you increase the traffic on that site. Beyond that, there was some conversations last night, and maybe this is for the Department of Health or whoever it is that's scouring the locations. I know a few of us at the event last night reached out to contacts we have, but there is a lot of open land over by the Rodizio Grill, which was closed down, and the movie theater there in American Fork. There are 4 entry points. All 3 commissioners have an email I sent last night with a map of that location and some of the open spots. With some phone calls I received today, it sounds like 1 or 2 of those may be being used, but if you are willing to look at an open location where you would do tents like the equestrian park, that area, which is owned by the Woodbury Corporation, has 4 different access points, roundabout, excessive parking spaces. And so it sounds like there's been a difficulty in finding locations due to a lack of manpower. that is a location that I would encourage the county to look further into. And a few of us have reached out to Woodbury Corporation to see if we can try to make any introductions or see if they'd be willing to work with the county. But whatever it takes to have this be removed from the docket completely rather than just shelved would be in the best interest of those around this area, but also for the safety concerns that you can't get away from even with a lower volume.
Okay, thank you. Other comments?
Yes, we now have Emily Bigler. If you'd like to go ahead and unmute and proceed with your comment.
Yeah, so my comment, I am an equestrian, but first and foremost, I work in healthcare. I'm almost done with my nursing degree, but I have been giving COVID vaccines out at Mountain Point before they moved to the health department. And my biggest concern, having done like shifts out when they did COVID testing outside in the summer, even with a tent and with an AC unit in there blowing, it was insane how hot it was. And the amount of work that all these nurses have put in this last year, and then to say, we're going to give you a tent at the very best, and outside, otherwise you're stuck in the snow and the wind and the rain and the heat. And if people had appointments set up today with the weather it is, would you have canceled all those appointments because it was dangerous for the nurses to be outside administering these vaccines? Those are my concerns. Like, I want the equestrian center open for everybody. I know the good it does for people. I know tons of people who utilize it. I personally don't, but that's a luxury I don't need because of where my horse is. But my concern is for the well-being of the nursing community. They've served countless hours and worked way more hours than necessary over the last year due to this pandemic. And to say they don't matter by giving them inadequate locations to administer vaccines, I feel like is a backhand to them. It's telling them that, yeah, you've done all this good for us, but we actually don't care. And instead, I love this idea of wherever this indoor building is great. The Megaplex, I actually am working there on Saturday giving out vaccines. Like, these are places that can be utilized. There are indoor locations that provide good accommodations for the nurses and for the patients. I worry about a patient sitting in a car and not noticing the small signs of an anaphylactic reaction and then rushing to get medications because it's become more severe now, and getting that medication in time to that patient while they're in a car. It's already going to be difficult enough to administer a medication to them, let alone putting them inside a vehicle. So putting them in a building where they're in a chair and the medication's closer and more easily accessible for these nurses, and they can see the patient better, I feel like is just a better option in general. And I agree with the safety precautions on that road. I used to work at IFA, and I drive that road all the time, and it's horrible. And not having a way in and out, if there is a line backed up for emergency medical services to be able to get in and out if something were to go wrong, is a big concern for myself and other people I've talked to in the healthcare field. Like, it's just very worrisome.
All right, thank you.
So I would, yeah.
Thank you. I'm gonna steal some words from a former commissioner that used to say, when you drill and hit water, stop. And so there's an ability here with, we're moving in a direction. I think a lot of you, if you have some, I don't want to discourage public comment. If you have some comments maybe on, that have continued from the previous ones on some ideas, I think that'd be great. But maybe keep that in mind that it'd be nice to move on this item.
All right, looks like we have a couple more. The next one is Gemina Street. If you want to go ahead and unmute and make your comment.
Yeah, so it's Jemima. Thank you for allowing us to have public comment. I know it's super important to all of those in the surrounding community and also the equestrian community. I'd basically echo the sentiments that, the previous two have talked about, the safety concerns from the road. More traffic means more danger to the children that use that road to walk home from school or dropped off from a bus. But then my question would be, is isn't that zoned residential? And if it's zoned for residential, wouldn't doing this go against the zoning in both the county or the city? And then also just the proximity to hospitals, with it being congested. If somebody does have a reaction to the vaccination, you're going to have a hard time having emergency vehicles come in and out because of the congestion. But then also just getting into the facility itself will be a nightmare, and then trying to get out. You're not in a quick trip to the hospital. If somebody does have to have more medical attention, what Emily said, it's horrible conditions for the nurses. I was there today riding, and I didn't even want to walk the 10 feet from my trailer to the indoor arena. And then just as an equestrian, we are being pushed out everywhere. We're already in the fight to try and keep this. And then just to come in and have the county, basically slap us in the face and say, your needs aren't important. And we're paying to use that facility already. So you're punishing those that are paying to use the facility when there are other options on the table. And there have been really great options suggested. It's just a matter of taking the time. So I would suggest that you look at the priority. Is the priority to hurry up and find a site, or is the priority to listen to your constituents in the community and do what's best for them, not just best for your timeline? And those are my comments.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, we have Alicia Martin. If you want to go ahead and unmute Alicia, and you can go ahead and do your comment. Thank you.
Okay, it looks like Alicia, and then it looks like
Sorry,
there's one
sorry,
more Amy
technical
after that.
issue.
Go ahead, Alicia.
Yes, I'm speaking as a nurse and a resident. So along with what Emily was saying, I actually did COVID swabbing in a tent at the hospital. Everything was set up by Diamond Rental. And I can tell you right now, with an AC, with the heater, it was still not adequate enough. We were sweating or we were freezing. And with Utah weather, I don't know that you would have the participation that is required for that influx. Somebody else made a comment about Rodizio Grill. There are a couple of different businesses in that same area that, just from the experience of doing the COVID swabbing this year and the congestion we had at the hospital and the problems they had surrounding that, it makes more sense to utilize the businesses like Gordman's that isn't being used right now. The parking lots are made for this type of influx. You have a solid building with restrooms. You can easily set up and make accessible. I don't know if anybody else has commented, but there's lots of availability next to the hospital with open lots. If there is somebody with a reaction, the main issue is with these vaccinations. I've had mine, and I was lucky I didn't have a reaction, but I was also next to the emergency room. So if I did have anaphylactic shock, which is a side effect of these vaccines, then I could essentially be wheeled in through a door and get taken care of. So as a resident and as a nurse, I feel like the distance between where you guys are planning and the potential side effects of somebody being harmed from these vaccines is great. So maybe even finding something at Thanksgiving Point, which is right across the freeway from the hospital. They have lots of venues that aren't being utilized. And I think that there could be more creative thinking done surrounding this vaccine.
Okay, thank you. I think we have one more, and then we'll close public comment. Is that Amy?
Yes, Amy, and if you could, when you unmute yourself, if you could announce your full name, because all we have is Amy on the Zoom. Thank you.
Of course. My name is Amy Gardner, and I'm a resident here in Highlands. I live in the equestrian, or the cul-de-sac above the equestrian park. And I'm one of the homeowners that is being affected by this. And it's not just the vaccine clinics, but when you mentioned that the road was being rewidened and that's the project that Highland City is about to start, I think you need to know as commissioners that this isn't something that just is happening recently. This has been something that has been over a 2-year period of proposing road design plan and meeting with homeowners and settling with the city. And my family just settled with them last week about letting them acquire some of our land. And so many of us have already, we're in the process of this starting. I think you're under the impression that this is something they're just barely starting to bid out, but this is supposed to start the 1st of March. This road expansion has been an ongoing process, and there's many homeowners along the street who are losing land, who have already either settled with the city or are in the midst of it. Like we're signing and we're supposed to meet the title company. And so when you guys say you still want to just keep this as a backup offer, I think you need to realize that you are putting all of us in that equation and putting this out another 6 months to a year. And we've already given some of our land up. And then for the road not to happen, and it's happening because of the safety concerns we've been talking about, we really need this to happen. This has been an eyesore. You can talk to the city. They get calls numerous, just all day long about the road and how it needs to be fixed. And so I'm asking you to please remove this from even being a potential site. There's been a lot of other things suggested, and I think that you guys need to just remove this particular spot as one of your choices. And I'm asking you to do that.
Okay, thank you, Amy. All right, we'll close the public comments on there. Peter, did you want to make some comments? Probably announce who you are too and what your role is.
Yeah, my name is Peter Quittner. I'm the emergency manager for Utah County. We've been tasked to assist the health department in finding different sites, viable sites for vaccination clinics. And I just want to speak out to the public and just ensure the public that we are willing to address. I love the ideas that people are bringing up. I would like to provide an outlet for them to send that information to. If any of those recommendations, they can send an email to em@utahcounty.gov. That's em@utahcounty.gov, and then we can address those. One of the things we're up against is the timeline of the vast increasing number of doses that were going to be coming our way. So we had a very short window to try to find an option. So we've been out in the community scouring, trying to find these options. It's amazing that the public is able to come forth with some of these recommendations. If you send that to that email address, we have a team of people that can look at that. We can go out and address those sites and see if they're viable sites. Another comment that was made, Commissioner Lee, you mentioned the Smiths in Saratoga. I received a call this morning that could be back on the table as well. Now, with some of these things need time to play out. So what we were looking at with our beginning of March timeframe for our increase in vaccination doses sometimes don't allow for some of the options on the table right now to pan out. But that is back on the table if we are given a little bit more time and maybe some of these other issues, including this building that we found out about today. If this can alleviate some of the pressure and allow us to go out and search for additional options, we were there on site at the equestrian park, and we understand these concerns. We brought up the road conditions. We talked about that. I know there was a young lady that talked about the emergency vehicles in and out. We talked about all that. We talked about getting emergency vehicles on site, standing by. We're addressing these things. There's no perfect option. I think Commissioner Ainge said every site's going to have its drawbacks, and there's no perfect site. But I just want to address the public and tell you that we are addressing these. We are willing to listen to those recommendations you have, and if you can send those those ideas to us at that email address, we will address those and look at those and give it our very best effort to address those.
Thank you, Peter. Okay. We do have that agenda item number 24. I would recommend that we strike that agenda item.
I'd like to make a motion that we strike and remove item 24.
Second.
We had a motion and a second to strike agenda item number 24. All in favor say aye.
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 That passes 3-0. All right. As far as work sessions, the only one that I have is number 25. Is that it? Any others? Okay, so we can strike 26, 27, and 28, and then set 25.
I'd like to make a motion that we set the date, time, and location for a closed meeting to discuss the character, professional competence, or physical or mental health of an individual or individuals following the completion of the regular agenda.
I've got a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
I got a motion and a second to set the time, to set the date and time for discussion of professional competence, as stated in number 25. All in favor say aye.
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 That passes 3-0. Now if we could strike 26, 27, and 28. Is there a motion to strike
I'm sorry.
26, 27, 28?
I'm reading, not listening, sorry. Make a motion, we strike items number 26, 27, and 28.
Second.
I got a motion and a second to strike items number 26, 27, and 28. All in favor say aye.
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 That passes 3-0. We do have one work session item. And Commissioner Sakovic.
I've invited, let's see if they're still on, representatives from the city of Saratoga Springs and Eagle Mountain to discuss this outline. And I don't know who the author is of the slides. Is that you, Richard? Mayor Miller, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
And so shall we hear from the mayor first, what they're thinking about, and then over to the Public Works? Okay. Okay. Well, Mayor Miller, would you go ahead and outline what you have in mind?
Yeah, first of all, thank you, commissioners. I know you've all coming out, taken a look at this project, kind of understand the scope of it and see what's going on. I appreciate the effort you put into getting this funded in this year's budget for it. What we are hoping today is to be able to talk with you about kind of the next steps, what we can do to help remove obstacles, to help the county get things going, move things along. With that, we have Eagle Mountain has some representatives here, Paul Jerome. I believe Mayor Westmoreland was going to try to get on the call to talk about the portion with Eagle Mountain. We have Jim Smith and Weston Berry that manage and run Wasatch and have talked to the landowners about maybe helping to get the easements taken care of, kind of take some of that burden hopefully off the county and get things moving. So I don't know if you want us to continue talking, Commissioner, or if you said something about a slideshow deck first, or?
Would you say that again? I didn't quite pick that up.
Did you want to do the Public Works slide deck, or do you want us to kind of talk from Eagle Mountain's point and Wasatch Wing and Clays?
We wanted you to present your thoughts on why we should go forward with improving that road and the Eagle Mountains portion of it, and the effect it would have on the Wasatch Chute and Clay.
Okay. What I'll do is, if it's okay, if Weston Berry, he's the operations and general manager out there at Wasatch Wing and Clay, let him talk about the events and kind of opportunity costs that have happened out there.
That'd be great. Go ahead.
Awesome. Thanks, Jim, and thank you, commissioners, for meeting with us once again. And thank you guys for all coming out and hopefully enjoying yourselves out here as well. Yeah, we would just really like to get this road project moving. did a little bit of calculation today over some of the bigger sporting shoots that we've had to turn down because of the road, and also some of our lost revenue that we've had thus far, just directly related because of the road. And we've already had 2 cancellations of family reunions out here of this month because their cars can't make it out here, which is currently right now the road you can't make it out here. We've already lost a dog trial this year, and between our wedding revenue and losing our big shoots, we're actually already lost just in the last 2 months almost $200,000 in revenue. We have lost, and to us that includes, just some perspective, that's about 20% of our revenue for the year. We've already lost, or the potential revenue we've already lost because of that road. And so, once again, we're here to hopefully that gives you a little perspective on us, how important this road is to us, and how much opportunity revenue we're losing the longer it's not in. That's all I have.
When the,
And then, yeah.
Go ahead.
Sorry, Commissioner, do you have a comment?
No, I just was going to ask, when the county does make the road improvements and they come out and grade it, does that improve the access for cars and trailers that want to come out there, campers, RVs?
Kind of. It's better than what it is. When the county comes and grades, it's just a simple, they're just grading what's already there. Once again, this road doesn't have any more base in it. And so any improvement that's done is soon taken away with the amount of traffic that's on it. And to be honest with you, every time the road does get graded, the flat tires do increase because we're just turning up all the loose rocks back on top.
So the biggest concerns you have about $200,000 in lost revenue each year. Okay. How long has that loss been going on?
For years. But recently, just the 200,000, that's just what I just calculated. That's not including the other revenue we've lost compared to just people's bad time, or I guess it's just the reported losses that we've had, not necessarily the people that just don't come out here that I know of because of the road.
Commissioner, the one that we talked to you about most recently was the Western Regional shoot for USAS. It was between us and Las Vegas, and the road was kind of the determining factor that put the Western Regional shoot down in Las Vegas instead of out at Wasatch Wing and Clay here in Utah. And that'll bring people from all the Western states here for 3 to 4 day shoots, staying in hotels, eating. And so that's, their revenue loss doesn't equate to everything coming in from out of state. When they shoot the Kruger Cup, they can get that again. I know they have people from Hawaii, Alaska, Canada that all come down. These are big events that bring a lot of people in to stay in Utah as part of the tourism, in addition to just being out there for that event.
Okay. Any other comments on this?
I don't know if Eagle Mountain has comments they want to add. Mayor Westmoreland was able to call in.
Mayor Miller and Commissioners, Mayor Westmoreland was unable to connect. He was having trouble getting access. So my name is Paul Jerome, the city administrator for Eagle Mountain City. And, just would like to say that we appreciate having Wasatch Wing and Clay so close to us and for what they bring to the community. And we would like to be active partners in seeing this through to resolution and helping to make this access better and bring more events to the community. So, thank you.
Commissioner, I think also one of the other things is, Commissioner Lee, you and I have worked on it with the number of people shooting in the foothills, trying to burn down these communities every year. This provides a range. They've got pistol range, and that it's reasonably priced to go with safe backdrops. fire prevention in place. So it solves another one of the county's issues, but access then, becomes, if it's easier, people aren't trying to shoot just off the road anymore into the dry weeds, which is a problem for all of us that live along these dry hills.
Yes, it is. If I could, Commissioner. Yes, we have been working on this, and last year, and this was put into our Utah Valley Road Special Service District budget, so that's in the budget for this year. But you asked the question, what we can do to kind of push things along a little bit. There's a few things that we do need still to kind of get over the hurdle. We need an interlocal agreement with Eagle Mountain for the portion of the dedication of the road right away, and then some road right away from the landowners as well. So those are two areas that have not been tied up yet. We need that interlocal agreement, and then the road right away. I know we've talked about that, what that looks like, but maybe some help in those two areas could kind of help us get past the finish line, at least get to the starting blocks with this road.
Paul, I don't know if that's something you can work on from Eagle Mountain side with Mayor Westmoreland.
Yeah, certainly. If I can give my contact information out, you can reach out to me and we can try to figure that out as soon as possible.
And then Jim Smith, one of the owners out there, he's talked to the landowners and the Cattlemen's Association. So he's got all the contacts and has made them aware that this is a potential and an opportunity. So he can remove a lot of those obstacles to get whoever you need in there to start having that discussion.
So, with
Can I
that,
make a comment?
Yes.
This is Jim Smith.
You bet.
One thing that we're waiting for on the right-of-ways was the design of the road. When we first had the initial conversation about the road, there were some specifications that Public Works wanted as far as width and which way to put it. And we can be a big help them with those easements across the property, but we need to know what you want to build for a road. That would help us tremendously. That's what's been holding up most of that. And I might just say a few more comments too. This isn't a road just for Wasatch, Wayne, and Clay. I'm a member of the Lehigh Cattle Association. We have over 1,000 head of cattle that range in West Canyon that are hauled in and off that road, and you just can't, it's just the tires we go through and the problems. Historically, that's been a winter wheat producing area. We haul wheat in and out of there. Currently, a lot of it's in permanent grass, CRP now, but West Canyon is a very prominent recreational area. There's a lot of traffic up and down that road, and when I was a young buck, back when rocks were still soft, that road was pretty good, but over the years, it's just never had any gravel added to it, and it just has gone in disrepair.
so
For the amount of traffic and the area that it covers, they could sure use some improvement. That to pave that is a long overdue decision, in my opinion. But we really appreciate your consideration of it.
So do we need to have the county attorney's office or civil division work with these Eagle Mountain and Saratoga Springs to begin this process?
Well, I think that I got a text, and it looks like Steve, trying to get back to it, Steve Munford at Eagle Mountain already has all the information. So it's if you contact, make sure, if he's got the information, if we need to get more or whatever the case may be, we're more than willing to do it. It's just, let's just go through the process and tie it up.
And do we need then to hear from Public Works on what they've got, their perspective?
The other two commissioners heard the same thing last summer, so it would be, it's up to you.
I got it from you over the phone. I think I can understand it.
Yeah. Okay. So maybe I'll just let you go ahead and wrap it up. It's your item.
It sounds like we pretty much got it going. If we have someone out there, it was Eagle Mountain, you said, that has the basic information?
Steve Mumford has
Mumford has it?
Yep.
Then if the mayors of Eagle Mountain and Saratoga Springs would work with Steve Mumford at Eagle Mountain, go ahead and coordinate that so we can get that interlocal agreements taken care of and the easements and the right-of-ways taken care of. Can you do that in the next couple of weeks or so we can move that along?
This is Paul Jerome from Eagle Mountain. We certainly can. So I'll look into that and we'll be in touch.
Okay. Okay. Then I think that would be it then.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Gentlemen.
Thank you.
We'll close the public session, work session. Is there any public comment, general public comment? I don't see any from here. Is there any online? Not online? Okay. All right then. We will move into our closed meeting. Thank you.
Goodbye.
Thanks, Richard.